The train was already moving when she collapsed onto my shoulder, and for the first few seconds, I thought she had simply fallen asleep from exhaustion. Then I noticed the tears running silently down her cheeks. I didn't know her name. I didn't know where she was going. I didn't know why her hands were trembling around a small, worn-out envelope. All I knew was that a stranger had chosen my shoulder as the safest place she could find in a crowded train, and somehow, I couldn't bring myself to move. My name is Daniel, and until that evening, I had convinced myself that keeping people at a distance was the easiest way to survive. I had spent the last 2 years doing exactly that. I went to work, came home, ate alone, slept alone, and avoided conversations that lasted longer than necessary. After losing my younger sister, Emily, to an illness we had both believed she would overcome, I had stopped expecting life to give me anything worth holding on to. That evening, I boarded the 7:15 train with one simple goal: get home before the rain became heavier. The carriage was crowded, the windows were fogged, and the rhythmic sound of wheels against the tracks made everyone look tired. I found a seat near the window and stared outside at the blurred city lights. If you believe that kindness can change someone's life, that strangers can become miracles, and that everyone deserves a second chance, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. You never know when a simple story might remind someone that they are not alone. I had barely finished settling into my seat when she entered the carriage. She looked to be around my age, maybe late 20s. Her dark hair was slightly wet from the rain, and she wore a simple gray coat that seemed too thin for the cold evening. She carried a small brown suitcase in one hand and clutched an envelope against her chest with the other. She looked around desperately for an empty seat, but every place was occupied. She finally stopped beside me. I moved my bag from the seat beside mine without saying anything. She gave me a grateful smile and sat down. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. The train rocked gently, and she kept looking at the envelope in her hands. Every few seconds, she checked the writing on the front as though afraid the words might disappear. Then her phone vibrated. She looked at the screen. Whatever she saw made the color disappear from her face. She quickly turned the phone off and slipped it into her pocket. I pretended not to notice. A few minutes later, her breathing became slower. Her head tilted toward the window, then toward me. Finally, as the train entered a dark tunnel, her head rested gently against my shoulder. I froze. I looked down at her. Her eyes were closed. For a moment, I considered waking her. But then I noticed something that stopped me. She was crying. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just quiet tears slipping from the corners of her closed eyes. I remembered Emily. She used to cry that way when she didn't want me to know she was afraid. So I stayed still. The train continued through the darkness, and I sat there with a stranger sleeping against my shoulder while the entire world seemed to disappear outside the window. After a while, I noticed her fingers tightening around the envelope. There was something written across it in blue ink. To Anna. Please read this before you leave. Anna. At least now I knew her name. I didn't read anything else. When the train came out of the tunnel, she suddenly whispered something so softly that I almost missed it. Don't let me miss my stop. I glanced at the electronic display. Her stop was still 40 minutes away. I won't, I whispered. She didn't answer. I thought she was asleep. But 20 minutes later, when the train slowed near a station, she suddenly lifted her head. Her eyes were open. She looked directly at me. Then she whispered, I wasn't really sleeping. I didn't know what to say. She wiped the tears from her face and gave a nervous little smile. I know. You knew? She nodded. I just needed somewhere to feel safe for a few minutes. Those words stayed with me. Safe. It was such a simple word, yet I couldn't remember the last time someone had trusted me enough to associate me with it. She looked down at the envelope. My name is Anna. I know. She raised an eyebrow. You saw the envelope? I wasn't reading it. It was facing me. She gave a faint smile. My mother used to say I trusted people too easily. Maybe she was wrong. Anna looked out the window. Maybe. Then her expression changed. She told me that she was traveling to a town 3 hours away. She had grown up there, but she hadn't returned in nearly 8 years. Her mother had recently passed away, leaving behind a small house that Anna was supposed to inherit. But the house wasn't the reason she was going. The envelope was. Her mother had left it for her. And Anna was terrified to open it. I didn't ask why. She eventually explained. 8 years earlier, Anna had left home after a terrible argument with her mother. She had been 18, angry, stubborn, and convinced that her mother didn't understand her. She had accused her mother of ruining her life. Her mother had said something equally painful in return. Anna left that night. She never came back. They spoke only a handful of times afterward. Then, 3 weeks earlier, her mother died unexpectedly. Anna received the envelope from the lawyer. She hadn't opened it. Why? I asked. She stared at the envelope. Because I'm afraid that whatever is inside will prove I was wrong all those years. I understood that fear. Sometimes the truth is frightening not because it hurts, but because it changes the story we've been telling ourselves. The train rattled through the darkness. Anna told me about the last voicemail her mother had left her. She had never listened to it. She said she couldn't. Then she laughed bitterly. Imagine that. Your own mother dies, and you're too scared to hear her last words. You aren't scared of her words, I said. You're scared of what you'll feel after hearing them. She looked at me. For the first time, I saw something change in her expression. How do you know? I looked toward the window. Because I did the same thing. I told her about Emily. I hadn't spoken her name to a stranger in years. Emily had been 22 when she became seriously ill. I had promised her I would be there through everything. But when her condition worsened, I couldn't handle watching her suffer. I began working longer hours. I convinced myself that staying busy was helping everyone. One evening, Emily called me. I didn't answer. She called again. I still didn't answer. She left a voicemail. I never listened to it. She died the next morning. I still had that voicemail. 2 years later, I still couldn't press play. Anna stared at me with tears in her eyes. Why don't you listen? Because if she was saying goodbye, I don't think I can survive hearing it. Anna lowered her eyes. Maybe that's why I'm carrying this envelope. The train began slowing. Her stop was approaching. Anna held the envelope in both hands. She looked terrified. Then she looked at me. Will you stay until I open it? I almost said no. My entire life had been built around saying no to moments like this. But something inside me refused. So I nodded. The train stopped. Passengers moved through the carriage, but Anna remained seated. She carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter. The first few lines were enough to make her hands shake. She began reading silently. Her lips trembled. Then tears began falling. I didn't ask what it said. I didn't want to invade something so private. After several minutes, she folded the letter against her chest. My mother knew. Knew what? That I was angry because I thought she didn't love me. Anna swallowed. She said she never blamed me for leaving. Her voice broke. She said she blamed herself for making me believe I had to. She covered her face. I sat beside her, unable to find the right words. She continued reading. Her mother had written about the night Anna left. She had admitted that she had been frightened and angry. She had been dealing with financial problems and an illness she had hidden from Anna because she didn't want her daughter to become responsible for her. But the most painful part was near the end. Her mother had written that she had waited every birthday by the window. Every Christmas. Every rainy evening. She had never stopped hoping Anna would come home. Anna pressed the letter to her heart. I wasted 8 years. No, I said gently. You were hurt for 8 years. She shook her head. I should have come back. Maybe. She looked at me. But you can't change yesterday. You can only decide what you do with tomorrow. She stared at me for a long time. Then she smiled through her tears. Who taught you that? My sister. Is she still alive? I looked down. No. Anna understood immediately. She didn't say she was sorry. Instead, she reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. She opened her voicemail. Her thumb hovered over the screen. Maybe you should listen to yours too, she whispered. My heart stopped. I didn't know how she had seen the voicemail notification. I had mentioned it. That was enough. For a moment, I wanted to run. I wanted to tell her she didn't understand. But she did. Because she was standing at the same door I had been afraid to open for 2 years. Anna pressed play. Her mother's voice filled the quiet carriage. It was soft. Tired. But warm. Anna cried as she listened. Then she looked at me. Your turn. My hands were shaking as I took out my phone. 2 years. 1 unopened voicemail. 1 decision. I pressed play. Emily's voice came through. Daniel, if you're hearing this, you're probably avoiding me again. I laughed through my tears. That was Emily. Even dying, she could still tease me. Her voice continued. I know you're scared. I'm scared too. But please don't spend your life feeling guilty because you couldn't save me. You were my brother. You were never supposed to be my doctor. I closed my eyes. A sob escaped before I could stop it. Then she said the words that broke whatever was left of my walls. Promise me you'll let someone love you someday. Don't turn my goodbye into your punishment. The voicemail ended. The train was silent around us. I cried like I hadn't cried in years. Anna reached for my hand. I held hers. Neither of us said anything. We didn't need to. 2 strangers had boarded a train carrying different kinds of grief. One was afraid to read a letter. The other was afraid to hear a voice. And somewhere between 2 stations, we gave each other the courage to face both. When Anna's stop finally came, she stood with her suitcase. I thought that was the end. But before she stepped off the train, she turned around. I don't know what happens next. Neither do I. She smiled. That's okay. Then she walked away. I watched her disappear into the rainy station. I thought I would never see her again. I was wrong. 3 weeks later, I received a letter. It wasn't from Anna. It was from the lawyer handling her mother's estate. Inside was a small photograph. On the back, Anna had written, "My mother always said strangers sometimes arrive at exactly the right moment." There was another sentence beneath it. "Thank you for giving me the courage to go home." I smiled. Then I turned the photograph over. It showed Anna standing outside her mother's old house. She was smiling. Really smiling. And for the first time in 2 years, I felt something inside me loosen. I called the number written on the letter. Anna answered. We talked for almost an hour. She told me she had decided to keep the house. She wanted to turn it into a small community home where people who felt alone could come and stay for a while. I told her about Emily. We talked about grief. About fear. About the strange ways life puts people in our path. And eventually, she asked me a question. Do you remember what I said on the train? Which part? I wasn't really sleeping. I laughed. I remember. She became quiet. Then she said, I wasn't sleeping because I was afraid that if I closed my eyes, I'd have to think about everything. But when I rested my head on your shoulder, I felt safe. There was a pause. That was the first peaceful moment I'd had in years. I didn't know what to say. So I told her the truth. You gave me that same peace. Months passed. We met again. Then again. Sometimes we talked for hours. Sometimes we simply sat together without saying much. Nothing happened like a movie. There was no sudden perfect romance. There were awkward moments, misunderstandings, difficult days, and moments when either of us wanted to retreat into old habits. But we kept choosing to stay. Because maybe love isn't always about someone entering your life and instantly making everything beautiful. Maybe sometimes love is simply finding someone who understands the broken parts of you and doesn't run away. A year after that train ride, Anna and I returned to the same railway station. We sat on the same bench where she had waited that night. She leaned her head against my shoulder. This time, she wasn't pretending to sleep. She smiled. I think I finally understand why we met. Why? Because we were both carrying messages we were too afraid to open. I looked at her. And now? She squeezed my hand. Now we're writing new ones. If this story touched your heart, please don't just watch and move on. Like the video, share it with someone who may be carrying silent pain, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Sometimes the smallest act of kindness can become the reason someone chooses hope instead of giving up. And before the story ends, I want to ask you something special. Comment, I choose kindness, if you believe that no one should have to carry their pain alone. Your comment might be the little reminder another person needs today. As the evening train disappeared into the distance, Anna rested her head against my shoulder once again. This time, there were no tears. No fear. No unopened letters. Just two people who had once been strangers, sitting together beneath the fading evening light, grateful that life had placed them on the same train. Because sometimes, the person who changes your life isn't the one you were looking for. Sometimes, they're simply the person who sits beside you when you're hurting. Sometimes, they don't save you. They just remind you that you still have the strength to save yourself. And sometimes, the greatest second chance in life begins with something as simple as offering a stranger a seat. Or a shoulder. Or a little kindness. And that night, on a crowded train, two lonely hearts finally discovered something they had both forgotten. It is never too late to come home.